Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jeanette, and today is a special video because it is being sponsored by Anderson House Foods, and they are the makers of the Frontier soup mixes that I adore so much and have been using for years and years. And I've done a couple of other videos featuring their soup mixes. I will go ahead and put links to those videos in the description box down below, but I am such a big fan of them that I always keep this type of stash on hand at all times in my pantry. So Anderson House reached out to me asking if I would be willing to do a couple videos in the month of August to help celebrate their 40th anniversary, and I of course said yes. So you'll see a total of 2 videos this month featuring some of their products. So if you aren't familiar with Anderson House Foods, they produce soup mixes as well as dip and other baking mixes, including a frittata mix, which I can't wait to try. And don't be put off by the names of some of these if you eat a 100% plant-based diet, because they are plant-based mixes and they have the option to add meat or cheese or other things to them if you would like. So the mixes I'm going to use in this video today are the Kentucky Homestead Chicken and Rice Soup Mix, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways to utilize this mix. One will be a soup and the other will be a rice and beans dish. And then I'm also using the Appalachian Trail Cornbread Mix. And the instructions are not plant-based on this. The mix itself is plant-based, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to alter this to make it a plant-based cornbread. So the way these mixes are set up, you have usually a dried grain and or bean in here, and then some beautiful dehydrated vegetables and some lovely herbs and spices in here. The mixes themselves are perfectly balanced, I think, as far as flavor goes, but on the back, they'll give you instructions on how to make the basic recipe. And then if you flip to the inside of the label, you'll find the directions, how to make it, and then usually they'll give you an inventive variation, which is a different way to use the mix altogether. And then if you go to their website, they have ideas to make vegan variations of these dishes. They have slow cooker and pressure cooker ideas for some of them, and other recipe ideas, things you can cook with them, for them, put in, take out. A lot of different ideas there, so make sure you check out their website. All right, let's get started on the soup. Keep in mind these are soup starter mixes, so you can definitely just use them as is, mixing the broth and the soup mix and be done with it, or you can add some other things to it. I'm going to use a total of 6 cups of vegetable broth as well as my soup mix. And look at how beautiful this soup mix is. It's just gorgeous. Then I'm also going to use 1/2 of a fennel bulb that I have chopped up, as well as some of the fronds that I've set aside, and that's just going to be to garnish the soup. Then I'm going to chop up 3 stalks of celery, and I'm going to have handy the juice from 1/2 lemon. I won't necessarily use all of it, but I'll have it handy. I also have 1 can of artichoke hearts that I have drained and rinsed and chopped up. And I'm also adding 1 can of white beans that I have rinsed and drained. So I have my soup pot, and I'm going to start with medium heat, and I'm going to start by sauteing my celery and fennel. And I'm going to add a splash of water here and there just to help prevent sticking. And I'm going to saute these until they are softened. Then I'm going to add my soup mix as well as my 6 cups of vegetable broth. Then I'm going to raise the heat, cover, and allow it to come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, I'm going to add in my chopped artichoke hearts. Then I'm going to reduce the heat to a simmer, cover, and cook for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, it's time to add the beans and then cook for another 5 minutes. So the actual cooking time of the soup is 25 minutes, but that's why I set my timer for 20, so I don't forget to add the beans in the last 5 minutes of cooking. I also check the soup for consistency at this point, and if it's a little too thick for my taste, then I thin it out with a little more water, but you be the judge of that. The reason I held off on adding the lemon juice until after the soup was cooked was because with broth-based soups especially, you want to taste it, and you might find that you need to add a little bit of an acidic component like lemon juice or vinegar at the end just to help brighten the flavors up. But you want to make sure that you taste it first before you do that, because it might not need anything at all. And what you want to make sure first is that your soup is properly seasoned. By that I mean it has enough salt in it for it to bring those flavors out to your liking. Salt does not mean making your soup salty. It means making it properly seasoned. And some of you may elect to not use any salt if you're salt-free, and that's totally fine. And by the way, these mixes don't contain any added salt. So the saltiness level or the amount of flavor augmentation is going to be up to you. So if you have properly seasoned your soup, but it's still falling a little bit flat, then you might want to consider adding a little hint of lemon juice or vinegar. And you don't need much of this. So I'm going to start very small. I've split my soup up here. So I've got about 2/3 of the broth base one here, and I set aside 1/3 to show you how I'm going to make it into more of a creamy soup. So for the soup that I have set aside to remain as the broth based soup, I have the juice from half a lemon here, which I'm not going to necessarily use all of that. I'm adding it just a tiny little bit at a time, and then I'm going to taste it and add more as I need to until I get it to the point where I like it. Now that I have my broth-based soup seasoned and brightened up to where I want it, I'm going to work on the small amount of soup here that I set aside to show you how to make a creamy version, or more like a chowder. So this all boils down to how much fat you want to consume, but there are many different ways that you can make a creamy soup eating plant-based. One of those is cashew cream. I love doing this because I find that it makes a really decadent, delicious soup, and you don't need much of this stuff. So I just blend up some cashews with water to make a basic cashew cream, and I'm going to add 1/4 cup to this soup. But if you can't have cashews, you can use your favorite nuts or seeds, blend them up with some water to make something like a really thick milk type or light cream type base, and then add that in. The other thing you can do is simply stick an immersion blender in this, or do it in batches in a blender really carefully, and puree some of this down or all of it, because this contains cooked beans and rice, which are nice and starchy, and if you puree them up, they're going to make your soup creamy. Or another thing you could do is add some chopped peeled zucchini and or some riced cauliflower to your soup while it's cooking, and then when you puree it, it's going to get nice and creamy. Or you can peel some zucchini, throw it in a blender with some riced cauliflower, puree that up with a little bit of water and add that in instead. Or you can, I've done this in the past, take a little bit of cooked rice with some water and make a nice rich rice milk and pour that in. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. Now, I did not add any lemon juice to this one that I turned into a cream base. I don't want it to curdle. So now I'm going to move along to my cornbread, and as you can see, the directions call for 3 tablespoons of butter, 1 cup of buttermilk, and 2 large eggs, and we're going to make plant-based substitutions for those. So what I'm going to need to make this, I've got an 8x8 baking dish that I've lightly oiled with some neutral tasting oil so the cornbread doesn't stick. You could also use some cooking spray, or if you're completely oil-free, you can try some parchment paper to line the pan. I've got my cornbread mix, and then to make buttermilk, I am using 1 cup of unsweetened soy milk, and I am going to sour this with the juice from half a lemon. And as I mix this together, it will start to curdle and create my version of buttermilk for the recipe. In place of the butter, I'm going to use an equal amount of unsweetened applesauce, so I have 3 tablespoons of that. And in place of the eggs, I'm going to create what's known as flax eggs. And to do this, to make a flax egg, you take 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds and mix it with 2 to 3 tablespoons of water and let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes until it becomes gel-like. So I have 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed, and initially I went with a total of 6 tablespoons of water, which ended up being too much. I had to pour some of the water off. So for me, I'm finding that if I used 2 tablespoons of ground flax, I probably would use somewhere around 4 to 5 tablespoons of water and let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes to let it gel. So I'm going to start by mixing my soured soy milk with my flax eggs. So once you've let your flaxseed meal rest with the water, it thickens up and it creates a gel-like consistency that's similar to scrambled raw eggs, and that acts as your binder. Then I add my cornmeal mix and give this a stir. Then stir in the applesauce and stir everything together, and then I can pour it into my greased 8x8 pan. I heated my oven to 425 Fahrenheit ahead of time, and then I bake according to directions for 20 minutes. And I just took the cornbread out of the oven, and it looks and smells amazing, so let me show you. All right, I am going to try all of this. That's incredible. It's so good. Let's see how I did with the cornbread. That's really good. And look at how light and perfect that baked up. And that was using no oil and no eggs. All right, yesterday I made the soup and cornbread. Today I'm going to be doing the inventive variation that is listed on the inside of the recipe card that comes with the soup mix. Now, might I add, yesterday we ate almost all of the soup. Jim is not a plant-based guy at all, and he loved this soup. He had probably 3 or 4 really good-sized servings of it. I had a bunch of it. We literally have 1 serving left and about half the cornbread. Very, very good. So like I said, I'm going to be doing the inventive variation that's listed on the recipe card. I've never made this before. Now keep in mind that these soup mixes are soup starter mixes. So you can keep it as simple as just using the soup mix and your favorite broth and be done with it and have a nice simple soup. Or you can add things to the soup mix. You can substitute different things and use them as a starter mix and make the soup however you want to. But don't just stop at soup, because you can use these mixes for other types of dishes as well. And today I'm going to be doing the superfood rice and beans side dish, which in my case will be a main dish. But it looks really simple to throw together. I've never made it before. I'm curious as to how it's going to turn out, so let's give it a try. To make this rice and beans dish, I'm going to need 3 cups of vegetable broth as well as my soup mix. I'm also going to add a can of beans, and you can use any beans you like. I'm using white beans. I'm also going to use 2 cloves of fresh garlic as well as about a tablespoon of fresh ginger. So I have here about 1 inch of fresh ginger that I peeled. I have this cool little handmade bowl with these ridges in the bottom that's used for dressings and sauces, so I use that to grate up my ginger and garlic, but you certainly don't need to do anything like this. You can just mince them up by hand with a knife. So I'm starting over medium-low heat, putting a little water in my pan, and I'm going to saute my ginger and garlic for like a minute or so. Then I'm adding in my soup mix. I'm going to give this a stir and saute that for a minute. I'm going to add in my 3 cups of vegetable broth, and then I'm going to raise the heat and allow this to come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, I'm now going to lower the heat to a gentle simmer. I'm going to cover this with a lid and allow it to cook for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, this is when I'm going to add my beans, stir those in, put the cover back on, and allow it to cook for another 5 minutes or until the liquid is absorbed. So I hope you guys enjoyed seeing some ideas on how to use a couple of the Anderson House Foods mixes. And I want to extend a really big thank you to Anderson House for sponsoring this video and for giving me this opportunity to do this, because I am a very huge fan of your products, so thank you. And I want to thank my viewers. And Anderson House gave me a few mixes to give away to my viewers. So we'll be doing a small giveaway. So you'll be getting a Kentucky Homestead chicken and rice soup mix and an Appalachian Trail cornbread mix. And I have 3 of these sets to give away. So this will be good for people that live in the United States, because I don't know about shipping food internationally. So I'll have to stick to the United States, although I really appreciate my viewers from all over the world. Just for shipping purposes, I'll have to do the United States for now. And all you have to do is like the video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and leave a comment. I'm going to give this about 2 weeks to run. All the details will be down in the description box below. And then I will randomly pick 3 people. And make sure you stay on top of your comments, because I will be contacting you in the YouTube comments with my business email, and then you can email me. That way I'll be able to have your mailing address and be able to send you your products. All right, that's it for today's video. Thanks very much for watching. This was a lot of fun to do. This is video 1 of 2, so you can expect another one using another one of the Anderson House mixes. So I'm going to do 2 different dishes with that one, so that should be good too. All right, thanks again. Hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and I will see you in the next video.